Number 1. Hard Rock Trail at Independence Mine. High above Palmer, in the cold air of Hatcher Pass, the Hard Rock Trail winds through the old Independence Mine camp. The mine became part of the Alaska Pacific Consolidated Mining Company in 1938, when two gold operations joined forces. At its busiest, more than 200 workers lived in this alpine village of bunkhouses, workshops, and steep gravel roads. The place was built for hard work, not comfort. Men drilled into the mountain, hauled ore, and battled snow that could swallow the pass for months. Today, the green-roofed buildings still stand like a town that simply stopped breathing. Visitors walk past the mine manager's house, the old tramways, and weathered boards that remember every boot that crossed them. That is where the trail grows strange. Some walkers say the gravel crunches behind them even when they are alone. Others notice a flicker in an empty window, soft and quick, like a lamp being carried room to room. Nothing rushes at them. Nothing screams. The feeling is quieter than that, as if the mine is checking who has come back after all these years. By sunset, the mountains turn blue, and the camp seems smaller under the sky. Independence Mine is history you can touch, but also history that feels awake. Maybe the sounds are wind, loose stones, and old wood shifting in the cold. Still, on the Hard Rock Trail, many people leave with the same thought. Someone is walking the mine road just out of sight. Number 2. Chilkoot Pass Trail. The Chilkoot Pass Trail begins near the ghost town of Daya and climbs toward Lake Bennett, crossing a route far older than the Klondike Gold Rush. For generations, Tlingit traders guarded this passage through the mountains. Then, in 1897 and 1898, gold fever changed it. Thousands of stampeders arrived with heavy packs, hoping the trail would carry them to fortune. The climb was brutal. At the steep section called the Golden Stairs, travelers hauled supplies in repeated trips, one load at a time. Snow, hunger, and exhaustion followed them upward. On April 3, 1898, an avalanche crashed down the pass and killed dozens of people. After that, the trail was no longer only a road to gold. It became a place of warning. Modern hikers still find rusted artifacts, old camps, and pieces of that desperate rush scattered along the route. Some also tell of misty shapes bending under invisible packs, moving slowly up the slope. Others hear faint, steady singing in the wind, like tired voices keeping rhythm so their legs will not give out. The sound fades when the trail turns. By evening, Chilkoot Pass feels both grand and heavy. The mountains are beautiful, but they do not soften the past. Every step follows people who risked everything for a promise written in gold. Maybe the voices are weather-crossing stone. Maybe the shapes are fog. Yet on that high trail, it is easy to believe the old stampeders are still climbing. Number 3. Winter Creek Trail. Winter Creek Trail slips into the deep green forest near Girdwood, where rain, moss, and hemlock trees make the world feel hidden. This is part of America's northernmost temperate rainforest, a place where water runs everywhere and roots twist across the path. Long before it became a favorite hiking route, the area was shaped by prospectors and mountain travel. The trail's most famous landmark is the old hand tram crossing over Glacier Creek Gorge. Built by local volunteers between 1999 and 2001, it once carried visitors above a narrow place where the river forces itself through a rock gap, only about 15 feet wide. The water below roars so hard that even normal sounds seem to bend and scatter in the trees. Near that crossing, some hikers say they hear soft laughter drifting through the forest. Others catch friendly voices behind them, low and warm, as if a small camp has been made just beyond the ferns. When they stop to listen, the voices stop too. The story is not a cruel one. People often describe it as peaceful, like echoes of travelers who loved the valley. It does not feel like a warning. It feels like the forest remembering every person who passed through with wet boots, cold hands, and hope in their pockets. When mist hangs under the hemlocks, the path seems to smile in secret. The voices never stay, but they leave the woods feeling alive. Number 4. Treadwell Ruins Trail. On Douglas Island, across the water from Juneau, the Treadwell Ruins Trail passes through the remains of a mining giant. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Treadwell was one of the most powerful gold operations in Alaska, with mills, tunnels, boilers, and workers moving day and night. The mountain gave up treasure, and the town around it grew fast. Then came the disaster of 1917. Mine tunnels beneath the island collapsed, and seawater rushed in, flooding the workings and shutting down much of the operation almost overnight. What had sounded like progress became silence. Today, moss covers the concrete foundations, rust sits on old machinery, and spruce trees grow where men once followed whistles and shifts. People walking the loop sometimes say they see miners in old work clothes moving between the ruins. A shape crosses near a boiler, then disappears behind concrete that no longer hides a room. Others report a faint steam whistle drifting through the trees after dark, thin, and lonely, like the mine is calling a crew that will never clock in again. The ruins feel too large to be empty, too heavy to be forgotten. As daylight fades over Douglas Island, the old foundations seem to hold their breath. The gold rush ended here in water and stone, but the trail still feels busy with the memory of work. Number 5. Eklutna Lakeside Trail. Eklutna Lakeside Trail follows the bright glacier-fed water of Eklutna Lake in Chugach State Park. The lake sits near historic Eklutna village, where Dena'ina Athabascan traditions and Russian Orthodox faith shaped a community for generations. The land feels calm, but not empty. It carries memory in a softer way than many haunted places. Nearby, the village cemetery is known for its colorful wooden spirit houses, built over graves as shelters of remembrance. They are not decorations. They are signs of family, belief, and respect. Because of that, hikers often speak more quietly near this part of the park, as if the woods themselves ask for care. Even the wind seems to move slowly along the lake. At autumn twilight, some visitors report small glowing lights hovering near the shore. They are gentle, not harsh, and they drift low over the water or between dark spruce trunks. Some call them will-o'-the-wisps, while others simply say the lake has its own lanterns. The lights vanish before anyone can get close, leaving only ripples and the last gold of evening. The trail does not need a frightening face to feel mysterious. Its legend grows from water, graves, faith, and respect for those who came before. When the lake turns blue-black at dusk, the lights feel less like a scare and more like a reminder. Some places are not haunted to frighten us, but to make us listen. Number 6. Bonanza Mine Trail. Bonanza Mine Trail climbs above McCarthy into the huge country of Wrangell St. Elias, where the mountains look almost too large for human plans. In 1900, Clarence Warner and Tarantula Jack Smith found a rich copper outcrop near the Kennecott Glacier. That discovery helped create Kennecott, a remote mining town built around ore, rail lines, and ambition. The trail today is steep, rocky, and tiring, but it follows the same dream that pulled workers into the high country. From 1908 to 1938, men lived and labored around Kennecott, sending copper down from the mountains to the mill below. Nearby, the cemetery still holds about 50 markers, quiet proof that this beautiful place could also be unforgiving. Visitors sometimes say Kennecott does not feel empty, even when the streets are silent. They hear soft footsteps on wooden boards, low voices near deserted buildings, or the dull clank of machinery inside the old 14-story mill. The sound comes and goes, like a shift starting far away behind walls, where no living crew is working. By evening, the ruins turn dark against the glacier, and the whole valley feels watchful. Bonanza Mine Trail is not only a hike to a famous copper site, it is a climb into the cost of Alaska's boom years, when men carried hope into mountains that rarely gave anything back easily. If the old mill still seems to breathe, maybe it is because so much human effort was left there. Number 7. Tony Knowles Coastal Trail. Tony Knowles Coastal Trail curves for 11 miles along Anchorage, with Cook Inlet on one side and city life on the other. Built between 1986 and 1988, it became one of the city's best-loved paths. A place for runners, cyclists, families, and winter walkers. On clear days, the trail opens to Fire Island, mudflats, mountains, and a sky that feels endless. But Anchorage's coast has always carried more than scenery. The inlet is shaped by powerful tides, cold fog, and a long history of travel along the shore. Planes pass overhead, waves slide across the flats, and the city lights glow behind the spruce trees. At twilight, the trail can feel caught between two worlds, the modern city and the wild edge beside it. That is when people speak of the phantom jogger. The figure appears in coastal mist, dressed in old-fashioned running clothes, moving silently along the path. Runners say he keeps an easy pace, not chasing, not warning, just sharing the trail. Then, when someone passes or looks back, he fades into fog as gently as breath on cold glass. The legend has become almost friendly, which fits Anchorage itself. The Tony Knowles Coastal Trail is not a ruined mine or a forgotten road. It is alive every day with motion. Still, when evening lowers over Cook Inlet, that silent runner feels like a memory the city never lost. He keeps going, mile after mile, as if the trail belongs to every generation that ever loved it. Number 8. Manitoba Cabin Trail. Manitoba Cabin Trail runs through the Mills Creek area of the Kenai Peninsula, where mining once brought hundreds of men into the valleys. Along Canyon Creek, more than 300 miners worked the gravel, hoping one pan or shovel strike would change their lives. It was not an easy place to chase gold. The creek was cold, the work was slow, and the mountains kept their own rules. One name tied to the area is Robert Michelson, who dug the mile-long Blue Gulch near the place where Manitoba Cabin stands today. Cabins, tools, and creek beds became part of a hard little world built around patience. Most miners did not become rich. Many simply left marks in the land, then moved on when the gravel gave them too little. On quiet mornings, hikers sometimes feel that past walking behind them. They described soft steps padding along the trail, stopping when they stop, then starting again when they move. Down near the creek, others hear a steady metallic clink like a shovel hitting stone. The sound carries through the valley, but no worker appears among the brush. It does not need a famous disaster to feel haunted. Its story is made from ordinary labor, tired hands, and hopes worn thin by cold water. When dawn sits pale over Mills Creek, the trail seems to remember the miners who bent over those rocks. The footsteps may be small, but they feel deeply human. Number 9. Potter Marsh Boardwalk Trail. Potter Marsh Boardwalk sits at the southern edge of Anchorage, where wooden paths cross open water, reeds, and bird-filled wetlands. It feels natural now, but the marsh began by accident in 1916 when Alaska Railroad construction changed water flow and dammed runoff in the area. What started as a railroad side effect became an Anchorage wildlife place. The boardwalk is usually peaceful. Ducks move through the reeds, salmon sometimes pass below, and mountains rise beyond the marsh like a painted wall. Yet the railroad history still lingers nearby. Early workers helped connect Alaska by rail, cutting through rough land and weather to build a route that changed travel, trade, and settlement across the region. Evening visitors sometimes say they hear a distant steam whistle floating over the water. It comes thin and far away, then disappears before any train can be seen. Others report a man in an early 1900s wool coat walking near the tracks, like a station agent checking the line. He never speaks. He simply fades into the gray light beyond the reeds. Potter Marsh is not frightening in the usual way. Its mystery feels woven into the place, where birds, water, railroad history, and city noise all meet. The boardwalk reminds people that landscapes can be made by accident and still become sacred in memory. Number 10. Perseverance Trail. Perseverance Trail begins behind downtown Juneau and climbs into a dramatic canyon shaped by water, stone, and gold. It is often remembered as Alaska's first road, built from a miner's route into Silverbow Basin. In the late 1800s, prospectors pushed into this valley after gold discoveries helped turn Juneau from a small camp into a growing town. Between 1885 and 1921, the Silverbow Basin mining district filled the canyon with hard work. Men hauled supplies, blasted rock, and moved ore through tunnels and along rough wagon roads. The trail that hikers enjoy today once served a serious purpose. It was a lifeline between town and mine, cut through steep country where weather could change fast. Near gated mine opening, some hikers say the air suddenly turns cold, even on mild summer days. Others hear the hollow clatter of wooden ore carts or the sharp tap of metal striking rock from deep inside the hillside. The sounds seem to come from places closed long ago. They echo for a moment, then vanish into the rush of the creek and wind. Perseverance is the perfect name for this trail because it tells the story of people who kept pushing into the mountain even when the work was dangerous and uncertain. Today, the canyon is green, beautiful, and full of moving water. But when a cold spot settles near the old tunnels, Juneau's mining past feels close enough to touch, still working in the dark. Number 11. Goose Lake Park Trail. Goose Lake Park Trail is a quiet loop near Anchorage's University District, where families come for water, trees, and easy walking. Most days it feels bright and simple, but every October, Anchorage Parks and Recreation helps change the woods into something different, with haunted trails and enchanted trails events that bring visitors out after dark. The spooky part here is not an old mine or a forgotten disaster. It is a city tradition built around imagination. Fire barrels glow, food trucks wait nearby, and costume figures stand between the trees. For younger children, the enchanted trail fills the forest with friendly creatures. For older visitors, the haunted trail lets the same path become shadowy and tense. That playful history gives Goose Lake its own kind of legend. People who walk there after the event season sometimes say the woods feel staged, even when no one is around. A branch cracks like a hidden step. A laugh seems to drift from the dark water. For a moment, the mind remembers masks, lanterns, and faces appearing where the trail bends. Goose Lake is not haunted by tragedy. It is haunted by memory, by the way a normal park can turn magical when night falls and a whole city agrees to pretend. That makes the trail special. When the last decorations come down, the woods keep a little of the story, as if the forest enjoyed the game and does not want to stop. Number 12. Crow Pass Trail. Crow Pass Trail crosses some of the wildest country in the Chugach Mountains, linking Girdwood with Eagle River. The route follows part of the Iditarod National Historic Trail, once used by mushers, mail carriers, miners, and travelers before modern roads reached many places. Today, hikers see glaciers, waterfalls, ridges, and long stretches of open alpine land. The trail also passes the remains of mining history. In the early 1900s, the Monarch Mine worked the slopes near Crow Creek, chasing gold through country that was beautiful but difficult. Cabins, tools, and rusted pieces of equipment remind hikers that people once lived up here for more than views. They came for work, risk, and the hope of a lucky strike. Near the high pass, backpackers have reported strange sounds around the public use cabin. Some hear slow footsteps crossing the gravel-covered roof, even when no animal or person can be found. Others describe pale orbs drifting along the ridges after sunset, moving where no headlamp should be. In that lonely height, even a small sound feels larger than it should. Gold seekers pass through, trail crews pass through, Iditarod travelers pass through. Modern hikers do the same, briefly borrowing a road older than they are. When the wind moves over the pass, it can sound like boots, sled runners, or someone walking just beyond the ridge line. Number 13. Byron Glacier Trail. Byron Glacier Trail begins in Portage Valley and leads toward a wall of ice, stone, and snow. It is a short trail compared with Alaska's bigger routes, but the scenery arrives fast. The path follows a cold stream toward Byron Glacier, with mountains rising close on both sides. The valley can feel peaceful, but it is not a harmless place. The Chugach National Forest warns that large cornices can hang over Byron Glacier Valley and that avalanche danger may last into summer. That danger is part of the trail's history. Early travelers in Alaska learned quickly that glaciers were alive in their own slow way. They cracked, shifted, dropped snow, and changed the land without asking permission. At dusk, hikers sometimes hear a high whistling sound bouncing between the cirque walls. It can seem almost like singing, thin and far away, carried by the wind above the stream. No figure appears, no voice speaks clearly. The sound just moves through the valley, rising and falling until it becomes hard to tell whether it comes from air, ice, or memory. The walk is easy, but the mountains are serious. When the evening light fades over the snowfields, the valley feels like a giant stone room holding one long note. Maybe it is only wind. Still, many people leave believing the glacier has a voice and that it is still singing. Number 14. Albert Loop Trail. Albert Loop Trail begins at the Eagle River Nature Center, a gateway into Chugach State Park about 40 minutes from Anchorage. The loop is only around 3 miles, but it passes through forest, wetlands, river views, and open valley scenes. Moose, birds, salmon, and bears all belong to this place, so the trail feels alive long before any ghost story begins. Every late summer, the land reminds visitors who truly owns the river. Salmon return, and bears feed in the shallow water near the beaver dams. Because of that, the Albert Loop is often closed for part of the season to protect both hikers and wildlife. That real rule gives the woods a serious mood, especially when the forest goes quiet. The legend is gentle. Some walkers say they see a lone hiker ahead of them, dressed in old flannel and moving at an easy pace. He never turns fully around. He simply follows the curve of the trail, then disappears near the next spruce-lined bend. When people hurry to catch up, they find only mud, roots, and the soft sound of the river. Albert Loop does not feel like a place trying to scare anyone. It feels like a trail teaching respect. The animals are real, the closures are real, and the silence has weight. If the phantom hiker is only imagination, he still fits the forest perfectly. A quiet figure reminding visitors to slow down and remember they are guests in wild country. Number 15, Lofton Glacier Trail. Lawton Glacier Trail begins far from ordinary roads, reached from the White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad near mile 14 outside Skagway. The railway itself was born from the Klondike Gold Rush years, when people needed a way through steep mountains toward the Yukon. Today, hikers step off the train and enter old-growth forest, river noise, and glacier country. The trail leads toward Lawton Glacier with gravel tread, wooden planking in places, and a public-use cabin near the route. It is not a simple sidewalk through pretty scenery. It is a wilderness path shaped by weather, water, and the long memory of railroad travel. The train's whistle still belongs to the valley, even after the cars have rolled away. That is why the legend feels so natural here. Hikers sometimes report hearing a steam whistle echo down the valley long after the daily trains have stopped. The sound comes faint at first, then widens between the trees like a call from another time. Some stop and wait for a locomotive to appear.
I am so glad
Instead,
come today.
the forest
Weather
settles
is
back
perfect.
into
Me
rain,
too. Look at
river,
that sunlight
and
coming through
wind.
the trees.
Lawton Glacier Trail feels haunted by movement. Gold seekers, rail workers, tourists, and hikers have all followed this corridor into the mountains. When the phantom whistle drifts through the valley, it seems to carry them together for one brief moment. Number 16, Mount Marathon Trail. Above the harbor town of Seward, Mount Marathon rises steep and gray, its slopes looking more like a challenge than a trail. The mountain became famous in 1915 when a 4th of July race was held after a dare over whether a man could reach the summit and return in under an hour. Since then, the Mount Marathon race has become one of Alaska's oldest and toughest traditions. The trail itself is rough, climbing through brush, roots, shale, and sudden drops. Runners and hikers feel the history in every turn, because this is not just a scenic path. It is a place where pride, endurance, and local legend have mixed for more than a century. Seward grew as a rail and port town, but Mount Marathon became one of the symbols people remembered most. At twilight, some say the trail belongs to one runner more than any other. Witnesses have described a silent figure in old-fashioned athletic clothing, moving quickly over the slope, bounding across the loose rock with impossible ease. He never calls out. He never slows down. For a second, he is there against the mist, and then the mountain seems to take him back. Wind races across the ridge, stones roll underfoot, and the town below looks small beside the dark face of the mountain. Maybe the phantom runner is only a trick of fog and fading light. Still, on that trail, it is easy to believe one race never truly ended, and one runner is still trying to beat the clock. Number 17, Sheep Creek Trail Sheep Creek Trail climbs into a high valley near Juneau, crossing a landscape shaped by forests, waterfalls, and the long shadow of mining history. Early prospectors Joe Juneau and Richard Harris helped open this region to gold seekers in the late 19th century, and trails like this became part of the hard network that linked camps, claims, and mountain work sites. As the route rises, it passes the remains of old mining structures and enters country that feels far older than the buildings left behind. Juneau's boom years were built on steep, wet, difficult ground, and men pushed into valleys like Sheep Creek because gold gave them reason to ignore the danger. Even now, the trail feels like a place where labor once pressed hard against wilderness. Hikers sometimes report sudden cold spots, even on still summer days. Others speak of hearing a faint, steady hum deep in the forest, like the rhythmic sound of old gold stamping mills working somewhere beyond the trees. The noise does not grow louder as they walk toward it. It simply lingers in the valley, as if the machinery is still turning in secret. By evening, the creek and hemlock seem to hold the sound in place. Sheep Creek Trail is beautiful, but it carries the feeling of effort that never quite disappeared. Number 18. Point Woronzof Trail. Point Woronzof stands on the edge of Anchorage, where land, tide, and sky meet in a broad, open sweep. Named after Semyon Woronzof, a Russian diplomat, the bluff now looks out over Cook Inlet toward mountains and moving weather. It sits near the end of the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail, and the views are so wide that the place can feel almost empty, especially near sunset. But Alaska's coast is never truly empty. Tides pull hard through the inlet, fog moves in quickly, and the flats below the bluff can change from shining mud to shadow in minutes. People have always been drawn to shorelines like this, whether for travel, work, or simple watching. Point Woronzof carries that quiet history, even if most visitors only come for the air and the view. Beachcombers and walkers sometimes say they see figures standing down at the water's edge when the sun is low. The shapes look still and human, watching the tide as if waiting for something. Yet when anyone gets closer, the figures seem to thin into mist and disappear. No footprints remain on the flats, and no voice answers across the wind. That is what makes Point Woronzof memorable. Its mystery is not loud or dramatic. It is distant, almost polite, like a scene you are not meant to interrupt. When the evening light fades over Cook Inlet, the bluff feels suspended between worlds. Maybe those figures are only fog and failing light. Still, many visitors leave with the strange sense that the shore was already occupied before they arrived. Number 19. Stampede Trail. Stampede Trail begins as an old mining road in the country north of Denali, running through spruce forest, muskeg, and wide Alaska silence. The road was pushed into this region in the 1930s to reach antimony deposits near Stampede Creek, and like many northern routes, it began with industry and ended with a rough path slowly given back to the land. In 1992, the trail became widely known for another reason. Christopher McCandless reached the abandoned Fairbanks City Transit bus 142 along the route and lived there for a time, a story later told in Into the Wild. That connection brought curiosity, sorrow, and debate to a place already shaped by hardship. People came to see the trail, but they also came to feel its isolation for themselves. Many who walk there describe something less frightening than deeply unsettling. The woods can become so quiet that every small sound feels sharpened. Some hikers have reported seeing the soft flicker of campfire light between the trees, even when no camp is nearby. Others say the trail carries a reflective heaviness, as if memory sits low over the ground with the evening mist. Stampede Trail does not need a ghost in the usual sense. Its haunting comes from distance, silence, and the knowledge that dreams and danger often travel together in Alaska. The forest seems to keep what happened without explaining it. Number 20. Chena River State Recreation Area Trails. The trails along the Chena River near Fairbanks cross a landscape tied closely to Alaska's interior history. When gold was discovered near Fairbanks in 1902, the Chena became an important route for travel and supply, linking people, boats, freight, and new ambitions. Later, in 1967, the river was remembered for another reason, when a devastating flood struck Fairbanks and changed the city forever. That layered past gives the river a special mood. In one direction, it recalls the gold rush, when prospectors followed creeks and cut trails through birch and spruce. In another, it remembers water rising fast enough to overwhelm homes, roads, and daily life. The recreation area is peaceful now, but the Chena has carried both hope and hardship through the same valley. Campers and hikers on autumn nights sometimes report seeing soft blue lights moving among the willow and birch. The lights drift slowly, low to the ground, and are often compared to will-o'-the-wisps. They do not rush or flare bright. They simply weave through the trees for a moment, then fade so gently that people question whether they saw them at all. That quiet uncertainty suits the Chena River trails. They are not haunted by one single story, but by many years of human struggle beside a powerful river. Gold seekers, flood survivors, and modern travelers have all left their mark here. When the blue lights move through the dark branches, they seem to gather all those memories together, like the river is still carrying pieces of the past downstream. Number 21. Keystone Canyon Goat Trail. Keystone Canyon, near Valdez, is a place of cliffs, waterfalls, and narrow stone walls that make every sound bounce twice. In 1898, Captain W.R. Abercrombie helped carve a route through this difficult country during the rush to open Alaska's interior. The old goat trail followed a hard line through rock and weather, made for people who needed passage more than comfort. By 1907, the canyon had another mark of ambition, a hand-carved railroad tunnel. Rival railway companies fought for control of the route, hoping to build the line that would win Alaska's future. The work was dangerous, the canyon was unforgiving, and the dream never became the grand railroad many imagined. What remained was stone cut by human hands and plans left unfinished. Hikers who enter the canyon sometimes hear the sharp ring of picks striking rock, though no crew is working nearby. Others say a faint train whistle drifts through the walls, thin and lonely, like a locomotive calling from a track that was never completed. The echo moves ahead of them, then disappears into the roar of waterfalls and wind. The Goat Trail and Tunnel are not only scenic pieces of Alaska history, they are reminders of men who tried to force a path through a wild place. When the evening light fades on the canyon walls, the unfinished railroad seems to whisper that some dreams do not die quietly. Number 22. Indian River Trail. Indian River Trail runs through Sitka National Historical Park, where tall hemlocks, moss, and river sound cover one of Alaska's most important historic places. In 1804, the Battle of Sitka was fought here between the Tlingit Kieks-Adi clan and Russian forces tied to the fur trade. The forest is beautiful, but its beauty stands over a serious memory. The battle marked a turning point in Russian colonial control around Sitka, then known to Russians as New Archangel. The Tlingit defenders had prepared carefully, and the struggle was not a simple footnote. It was a fight over homeland, power, trade, and survival. Today, totem poles and quiet trails help visitors remember that the land has a voice older than any map. Some hikers describe a solemn feeling along the river, especially when mist hangs low under the trees. A few report seeing still figures among the hemlocks, silent and watching, gone as soon as the eye tries to focus. They are often spoken of not as harmful spirits, but as ancient guardians keeping watch over a place that should never be treated lightly. Indian River Trail is haunting because history here is not buried. It breathes through the forest. The river keeps moving, the trees keep growing, and the old battlefield has become a place of learning instead of conflict. Number 23. Wickersham Dome Trail. Wickersham Dome Trail rises into the White Mountains north of Fairbanks, where open ridges, black spruce, and wide skies make the interior feel endless. The name honors Judge James Wickersham, one of Alaska's important early public figures. He helped establish law and government in the territory, and later became a strong voice for Alaska in national politics. Wickersham was also tied to Alaska's mountains and frontier spirit. In the early 1900s, he attempted to climb Denali and wrote about the challenges of the land with the seriousness of someone who understood its scale. The dome that bears his name feels fitting, high, exposed, and weathered, a place where a person can see far, but also feel very small. Backcountry travelers on autumn nights sometimes speak of soft lights moving along the treeless ridges. They flicker and dance above the dark valleys, as if old gold seekers were still scanning the creeks below. In the north, light can play tricks, and the sky itself can become strange. But these small glows seem lower, closer, and more personal. Wickersham Dome does not feel haunted by one single ghost. It feels haunted by the long pull of Alaska's interior. Judges, miners, hunters, travelers, and lonely dreamers, all drawn into the same cold hills. Number 24. Exit Glacier Trail. Exit Glacier Trail in Kenai Fjords National Park near Seward brings visitors close to a river of old blue ice. The glacier received its name in 1968 when it served as the exit point for the first documented crossing of the Harding ice field. That journey turned the place into more than a scenic stop. It became a marker of endurance, cold, and human courage. The trail is also a lesson in change. Signs along the route show where the glacier once reached, making each step feel like a walk through time. Ice that looked permanent has pulled back, leaving stone, gravel, and new growth behind it. The valley is beautiful, but it also reminds visitors that even giant things can move away slowly. Some people near the glacier report hearing a deep groan from the ice, low and rhythmic, almost like a song under the wind. Glaciers do crack, shift, and speak in their own natural way, but on cold evenings, the sound can feel strangely human. It rolls through the valley and fades, leaving hikers staring at the blue wall as if it might answer back. Exit Glacier is haunting because it feels alive without needing a ghostly figure. It grinds, melts, retreats, and remembers weather older than any town nearby. When the air turns sharp and the ice sends out that low voice, the trail becomes more than a path. Number 25, Russian River Falls Trail. Russian River Falls Trail follows forest and river country near Cooper Landing, leading hikers towards salmon viewing platforms above the rushing water. The name recalls Russian fur traders and explorers who moved through parts of the Kenai Peninsula when Alaska was still tied to the Russian Empire. Long before tourists came, this region was a corridor of fish, trade, and survival. The falls are best known for salmon. When the fish return, the water seems alive with silver movement, and bears, anglers, and visitors all pay attention. The trail itself feels gentle compared with Alaska's harsher routes, but the history under it is deep. Native use, Russian contact, and later American settlement all passed through this landscape of rivers and forest. At twilight, some walkers tell of a quiet fisherman standing near the rushing falls. He wears old linen clothing and casts his line with calm patience, never disturbed by the cold spray. Then someone blinks, or a branch crosses the view, and he is gone. No splash follows. No footprints remain. Only the river keeps throwing white water over stone. The legend feels peaceful, almost like a memory of all who came to the river needing food, trade, or hope. Russian River Falls does not frighten as much as it lingers. When evening settles and the salmon fight upstream, the silent fisherman seems less like a stranger than a piece of the place itself, still waiting beside the water. Number 26, Pioneer Park, Historic Trails. Pioneer Park in Fairbanks feels like a small window into Alaska's frontier years. Its paths pass old cabins, weathered storefronts, and pieces of history gathered from the Gold Rush era. The park began as a way to remember Alaska's past, but when visitors walk between the buildings, it can feel less like a display and more like a town that still has business after dark. One of its great landmarks is the historic sternwheeler Nenana, a wooden riverboat tied to the days when Alaska's rivers were highways. Before roads reached many communities, boats like this carried freight, mail, supplies, and people through the interior. The cabins nearby tell a similar story. Miners, traders, workers, and families building lives in a place that demanded patience. After hours, some walkers say Pioneer Park becomes strangely active. Figures in late 1800s clothing appear between the cabins, moving quietly from one shadowed doorway to another. They do not run or frighten people. They simply stroll, as if heading home after a long day near the river. Then they fade before the path reaches them. It is not a wild mountain trail or a lonely glacier. It is a place built from saved pieces of Fairbanks memory. When the lamps glow against the old wood and the park grows still, it can seem as if the past has stepped out for one more walk. Number 27. Nick Glacier Trail. Nick Glacier Trail leads into a wide, dramatic landscape near Palmer, where ice, stone, and river flats stretch toward one of Alaska's great glaciers. The Nick Glacier itself runs for miles through the mountains, a massive wall of ancient ice that has shaped the valley for generations. Even from a distance, it feels powerful, like something still working on the land. For many years, the glacier was tied to Lake George, a lake that could be dammed by ice and then suddenly released. These violent outburst floods, known as jokulhlaups, were among the most dramatic natural events in the region and continued until 1967. Water would break free with huge force, reminding everyone that glaciers do not simply sit still. They hold power. Trekkers crossing the flats on misty nights sometimes report soft, lantern-like lights moving along the moraine. Others hear faint voices carrying over the open ground, though no group can be seen ahead. In such a wide place, sound can travel strangely, but these reports feel personal to those who hear them, like quiet travelers moving through fog beside the ice. The floods, the glacier, and the empty flats all tell a story of nature changing the world without warning. When the pale lights drift near the moraine, they seem like old warnings from the valley itself. The ice may be silent for hours, but no one leaves thinking it is asleep. Number 28. McHugh Creek Trail. McHugh Creek Trail climbs above Turnagain Arm in Chugach State Park, where waterfalls, cliffs, spruce trees, and cold mountain air meet the sea. Long before modern hikers came here, the area was known to Dena'ina Athabascan people, and later it drew prospectors searching the rugged land for opportunity. The trail carries both older footsteps and newer dreams. The setting can change fast. One moment the creek sounds bright and peaceful. The next, wind pushes in from Turnagain Arm, and the cliffs darken. Gold seekers once moved through country like this with tools, maps, and stubborn hope. But the land was never easy to read. Waterfalls hid the sound of movement, and weather could turn a simple walk into something serious. Near the waterfall, hikers sometimes describe a sudden drop in temperature, sharp enough to make them stop. Others hear a soft whistling in the air, almost like an old folk tune being carried over the rocks. It does not sound angry. It sounds lonely, as if someone once passed through the canyon humming to stay calm and never quite left the song behind. The water shines, the views open wide, and yet the cliffs keep shadows close. Maybe the cold spots are mountain drafts, and the tune is only wind through stone. Still, when the whistling follows the trail for a few steps, the place feels watched by memory, not danger, and the creek keeps singing below. Number 29. Resurrection Pass Trail. Resurrection Pass Trail stretches for about 39 miles between Hope and Cooper Landing, crossing forests, valleys, creeks, and mountain country on the Kenai Peninsula. Its roots reach back to the late 1890s, when gold seekers used the route to move between mining areas. The name sounds almost peaceful, but the people who first pushed through it were chasing hard promises. The trail became a lifeline through difficult country. Prospectors packed supplies, followed rough ground, and made camps where the forest allowed it. Hope itself grew during the gold rush, and the pass helped connect scattered claims and settlements. Today, hikers use cabins and marked paths, but the old story still lies under every muddy stretch and creek crossing. Near the Hope side, backpackers sometimes report cheerful fiddle music drifting through the trees. A little laughter follows, soft and bright, like a campfire gathering hidden just beyond view. When hikers step off the trail to find it, the music fades. No smoke rises. No people wait there. Only the forest stands still, as if it has just swallowed a celebration. That is what makes Resurrection Pass feel different. Its ghost story is not only sorrowful, it carries the sound of relief, friendship, and gold rush travelers trying to feel human in a hard place. When dusk settles between the trees, the faint fiddle seems to remind hikers that people once laughed here too. Number 30. Flat Top Mountain. Flat Top Mountain Trail rises above Anchorage from Chugach State Park, drawing more climbers than almost any peak in Alaska. From below, the mountain looks close enough to know, but the final climb is steep, rocky, and exposed. For many visitors, Flat Top is their first real taste of Alaska's alpine world, where the city can vanish behind wind and stone. The trail became famous because it offers something rare, a wild mountain experience almost beside a major city. Families, tourists, students, and serious hikers all climb it, especially from the Glen Alps area. But the mountain demands attention. Loose rocks, sudden weather, and fading light can make the descent feel harder than the climb, especially for those who stayed too long at the top. That is where the legend of the Phantom Guide begins. Some climbers descending at sunset say they see a silent figure ahead on the switchbacks. The figure pauses at tricky spots, points toward the safer way down, and then continues into the mist. When hikers reach the same bend, the guide is gone. No footprints, no voice, no person waiting below. Flat Top's haunting feels almost protective, like the mountain itself offering one last warning before night takes the trail.
If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.